Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you live from TrustTV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman, standing in for the regular anchor who is indisposed at the moment. Today our focus is on the reconciliatory moves between Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje and his former ally, former Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Since Governor Ganduje succeeded his former boss, Kwankwaso, as governor of Kano State, relations between them has soured. Kwankwaso decamped to the PDP as the relationship deteriorated with Ganduje, who was his deputy for 8 years and his ally of several decades. The 2019 governorship election brought them head-to-head in an electoral context, which Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje won to secure a second term. Since their epic battle falling out, bitter words have been traded between the two camps. Their supporters have clashed, and praise singers on both sides have released chart-topping political songs satirizing both individuals and their supporters. But it now looks like the fences are being mended and a reconciliation seems to be on the cards. Recently, Governor Ganduje paid a condolence visit to Kwankwaso, who was bereaved after the death of his brother. Since that visit, Kano political atmosphere has been agog with reports of a reconciliatory move between the two politicians. So we ask, what does this reconciliation mean for their political futures and for the politics of Kano? But most importantly, what does it mean for governance? Where does this leave the Ibrahim Shekaru camp, which appears to be giving Governor Ganduje a run for his money at the moment? Joining me on the program to discuss these issues are Malam Salihuddin Tata Mahmood, a political commentator, and Aminu Salihu Yakudima, a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us.
It's our pleasure.
Good evening, Nigerians.
Now, before we commence the discussion proper, we would take a pause and allow Umar to give us a roundup of politics in the news today. Stay with us.
A group of northern youths have called on critical stakeholders of the All Progressives Congress (APC) to support the candidature of the former governor of Zamfara State for the chairmanship of the party. Speaking in Kaduna, the National Publicity Secretary of the group, Abdulkadir Dansoho, described Yari as one of the best candidates for the job. He also urged the party's leaders to provide level playing ground for those aspiring for the chairmanship position for justice and equity. Katsina State Governor Aminu Bello Masari has said he strongly supports shifting power to the southern part of the country. The governor said this will help consolidate the federation. He made this assertion while speaking to journalists in Katsina. On local government council elections, Governor Masari said elections will be conducted in the first quarter of 2022. He added that all necessary logistics, mechanisms and other needed materials are presently on ground to ensure hitch-free exercise in the state. A philanthropist and All Progressives Congress chieftain in Ekiti State, Kolawole Akinlayo, has charged leaders to provide quality leadership with sides on accountability and transparency at all levels of governance. Akinlayo stressed that quality leadership that emphasized selfless service was necessary for the sustenance of democracy. He also stressed the need for political class to embrace selfless service to the people who voted them into power as part of dividends of democracy, just as he promised to continue to give helping hands to the downtrodden.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Still daily politics, and now we commence the discussion proper. Let me start with you, Malam Yakudima. Perhaps the fact that you happen to come from Kano, where these two gladiators have been holding sway for some time now, and perhaps what impact this rift has been making, having on Kano State, as one of the very, very important states politically and commercially in Nigeria. What do you make up with this recent moves? They were best of allies, before even going into politics. They were friends, they became politicians, they were together and all of that. But they, go their separate ways after the 2015 elections. What do you make up with their first, separation and now they're coming together?
Well, I think it's a good development as far as people of Kano are concerned, and then even the individuals involved are concerned, and perhaps the citizenry of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I would like to cite the theory of economic determinism formulated by Karl Marx. Karl Marx says crisis, then peaceful growth is the key to progress. And he explains the complexity of this theory by the aspirations of the individual going for their goals. And in the process, they develop antagonism relationship. This antagonism relationship that develops over time between individuals create a lot of problems. So we can relate this theory to the rifts between His Excellency Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso and the incumbent governor, His Excellency Abdullahi Umar Ganduje. As you said, best friends. Unfortunately, they had rifts, and the rifts separated them, and then each one of them goes his separate way, politically, etc. And this created a very serious division. Division in the polity, division even in the cohesive nature of the people of Kano State. And it affected policies of government and governance itself. That is the consequences of that separation. Right. The consequences of the sour relationship between these powerful individuals of Kano State.
Right. Okay, let me take on Comrade. Now, Malam Amin has sufficiently, talked about the reason why we have to expect, some of these frictions among politicians. In politics, they say there is no permanent friend or enemy, but permanent interest. Now we've seen this playing out in Kano. But first, let me get your perspective. Is it a matter of principle? Is it a matter of policy? Is it in the interest of the people, or their own personal interests, based on your understanding of the rift?
Well, if you look at the rift between His Excellency, former Kano State Governor, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, and the incumbent, His Excellency Umar Abdullahi Ganduje, is a rift promoted and popularized by followerships. When you look at the Kwankwaso movement, for instance, they also contributed to movement of the rift from arithmetical to geometrical. And these reasons are not far-fetched. When you look at politics itself, it's a game of interest, it's a game of direction. The followership felt they can, in one way or the other, have control of their masters if they decide to bank on their division, on their enmity and host of others. And this enmity, in turn, made certain unpopular figures politically to become popular, and they've milked both His Excellency Kwankwaso as well as the incumbent Ganduje. Itato, there were people that were not given any consideration. As a result of the sycophancy, they made the cabinet of the incumbent. And for those in the camp of Kwankwasia, they, in the other way, were able to achieve certain political popularity. You can take example from the 2019 governorship election. Before then, where was somebody like Abba Gida? But that opportunity gave rise to him politically, that from grade 10, he moved to grade A. Then again, if you look at rifts that happened between deputies and governors in Lagos during Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu and Bukno Akerele, as well as in Osun State, Iola Otumba, Iola Omisore, and BC Akande in 1999. You can see it's similar to that. But today, Otumba, Iola Omisore, and Akande are in talking terms. So also in Lagos, when you look at Femi Pedro and Tinubu, all of them are together. People like former Minister of State for Navy, Musiliu Obanikoro, Itato, they fell apart with political godfather like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Therefore, that of His Excellency Kwankwaso and Ganduje are of personal interest, not in the interest of the people. Because if you look at tactically, most of the continuity of some of the projects, like overhead bridge.
Yeah, yes, we'll come to that. Well, you know, talking about personal reasons, but then let's look at what they advance as reason behind, you know, their disagreement. Let's take, for instance, Kwankwaso, the former governor, did say at some point that he has no personal grudges against the incumbent governor, but it's a matter of I mean, he accused him of deviating, as he said, from the norms or from the ideology of the original Kwankwaso group, you know, which they all belong. He cited example, you know, with the issue of debts, you know, that during his tenure, he made it an issue of policy that the state would not, you know, incur any debts. You know, and he said he made effort to even pay the ones he inherited and so on. Now, immediately the incumbent governor assumed office. He accused him of engaging in, you know, I mean, debt procurement and all of that, which to him is a deviation. That was one of the reasons he advanced. As a pastor, I mean, as a Kano citizen, how would you place this, you know, reason that is being advanced by former Governor Kwankwaso?
Well, perhaps could be a cogent reason. But even at that, we should not try to play to the gallery to have said that he has reasons to blame His Excellency for doing this. Everybody has a style of governance. When you assume responsibility of this magnitude to a position of an executive governor or a responsibility of similar type, policies could be enunciated the way you feel through the executive council. And then if there are policies somersaulted, could be as a result of inexperience of such people. If he says this is the roadmap, and this roadmap must be adhered to strictly, I think Kwankwaso may be wrong. Wrong perhaps because political party, has manifestos and constitutions. And every individual produced by the party must adhere to the provisions of the constitutions and the manifesto. The manifesto of the APC is the cardinal objective that should be pursued in governance as far as the state is concerned. Not what Kwankwaso needs or not the duties of Kwankwaso or what he leads, etc., etc. He knows that very well. And if you look at this, it creates implications. That is what we are talking about, the implication. It creates serious disharmony. There is also discrepancies within government, and you get policy somersaults because of that incoherence in the process of governance.
Right. Okay.
And we have had similar, or a magnitude or replica of such that also became a very serious issue in Kano State. If you remember, in the Second Republic, the rifts between Mala Aminu Kano and late Abubakar Rimi,
that's right,
etc. And then this repeated itself in the Second Republic also, between Sabo Bakinzo and the same Abubakar Rimi.
So it takes precedence, you know.
It takes precedence,
right? Okay.
Like a demisel. Repeating itself, history repeating itself anyway.
That's right. Okay. Still looking at, you know, the reasons for Ganduje, he also advanced similar reasons that he was actually not happy with the level of debt, you know, that was left by his predecessor, Dr. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, for instance. He talked about some of the projects, you know, he initiated. and then that led to the state incurring about 300 billion naira debts that he said. For instance, the issue of foreign sponsorship of foreign indigent students, for foreign universities and so on. He talks about also the Amana City project, which was also golfing about 2.5 or 3.5 billion naira, as he said, and all of that. So put together, he said, his predecessor left huge debt for him, and he wasn't happy with that. How would you? I'm looking at the back and forth. This one saying yes, I'm not happy because you are incurring debt, and then the other saying I'm not happy because he left. How would that be tenable?
Well, I think in this modern day democracy, where some governors get subvention without even leaving legacy of major routes in their states, should even be a commendation, even when somebody is perceived to have overestimated the cost of capital project and what have you. In the first place, when you educate people, it's like developing the people intellectually and otherwise. And human capacity building exceeds physical building. If you talk about how His Excellency, former Governor Kwankwaso, got some of the drug-addicted youths and some other ones that were just there due to the inability of the families to have the economic power to sponsor them to tertiary institution, by taking the bone by its own, by sending them to countries like Malaysia, China, India, and others to study IT-related courses, piloting, and other things. I think no matter how huge these monies are, it should be commended for that, because you have to take national and state interests above individual interests. And that was why I said all their fights is personal interest, because today there are youths that have become useful to their families and society via that sponsorship of Kwankwaso. And under this administration still, they continued. Some were still sent there. Then about the Amana City, what have you, that is the area I will fought. Because in a state like Kano that you can't compare with Lagos, you don't need such project. It's like wastage of resources.
He talked about the lack of enough affordability of the...
How many people in Kano can buy a house for 35 million? If you give somebody trading in Kantenkwari, Sabo, Gari Market, as well as other civil servants, even 15 million, they can go elsewhere and invest than buying house in Kano. So that area
it was a misplaced priority.
Misplaced priority.
Oh, okay. Now looking at the positive, even though there are salient issues as well, beyond what they've just advanced, some will say that is just at the surface. But then looking at the real issues, some say it is a case of a governor, a former governor who wouldn't want to come to terms with the reality of the fact that there is a change of government and someone is on the saddle, and that person should be allowed, to operate at his own terms. Again, some say is overbearing on the part, on the incumbent governor. He refused to let go, certain privileges and so on. At some point, they were talking about him using the lodge, the Kano lodge here in Abuja, and so on and so forth. That also created a lot of controversy. Do you see that as one of the reasons, that aggravated this rift?
Well, certainly, of course, that will go to accelerate or aggravate, as you say, so brief. I don't like to dismiss these reasons advanced as a cover, per se. But sincerely speaking, it's not right for His Excellency Ganduje to have said there is overbearing on maybe advices or guidance given to him by Kwankwaso. The reason is very simple. You can see the sacrifice and the interest shows in trying to bring him up to govern. In the whole of the 19 states of northern Nigeria, no governor has allowed his deputy to succeed.
So you can see the closeness and the trust. Perhaps,
exactly. That is sufficient for him to have listened to his predecessor. and is also sufficient to have taken him at the highest esteem, to have considered him as a mentor. They are friends, perhaps.
Even though they are contemporaries.
Yes, they are friends, perhaps. They are contemporaries, of course.
Right.
But even one can understand that Kwankwaso played a key role in advancing his cause in political hemisphere.
That's right.
He has also accelerated his career towards political development.
That's right.
As Saliu said here, yes, that is wrong also for the governor to punch this policy that is coherent, especially on human development that has to do with education.
Even though he sustained it, but...
He is sustained, but there are lacunas that were developed over time. This human development is key, especially to northern Nigeria, where we are lingering in terms of education, we are nowhere to be found, etc., etc. So this is a very important policy that could not be tampered with at all.
That's right. Okay, now looking at the role, played by those they describe, because at some point the incumbent governor Ganduje did mention in one of the interviews that the crisis or the disagreement or the rift, was actually brought about by people he calls political miscreants, who perhaps lives within the corridors of power and so on. But why should he, as a governor, for instance, and someone who knew Kwankwaso for a very long time, having been friends, all this while, having been together in government for 8 years as his deputy and so on, why should he, for instance, allow, third parties to come in? Or why should he listen to such political miscreants, as he called them, to disagree, to this extent with his predecessor?
It has always been like that. They inherited it. In the First Republic, it played out. In the Second Republic, it played out. In the ill-fated Third Republic, it played out. So it has been part of our system, and it is all about psychophancy. What I'm going to get into my fat bank account, or mindful of the interests of the least people in the society. And that is why you see, like I mentioned to you, from 1999 till date, we got it in Lagos, we got it in Oyo State. Don't forget Ladoja and Akala, where after his impeachment, it was his deputy that the PDP used against him, Alawa Akala, a one-time personal assistant to late Inspector General of Police Sunday Adeusi, who learned even as a police officer under his boss that was IG under Shagari administration.
It's still playing. One is playing out in Gombe, for instance, another one in Zamfara.
In Gombe before Inoa. So, because between Danjuma Goje and his successor, the Taliban Bauchi, Gombe, the former Accountant General, Kwambo, it played out. He single-handedly brought Kwambo, but what later happened? Still the same sycophantic gestures of some. I wouldn't describe them as miscreants, because without this people that blows the trumpet, that creates the problem between Allergy, myself, and others, there can't be sweetness of politics. Therefore, I think there should be better tagging of them. I think political gladiators than miscreants. Because when well, even the opportunities, I wouldn't give it to them, because.
So you think they make the show looks more interesting?
They make the show to look more interesting everywhere, whether in the government house, whether in presidential villa. Presently, under the Buhari government, you still have them that before anything happens, you have to get along with them. They have the first force, second force, and third force. So be it as it may, where party administrative machineries to be working, we wouldn't have experienced this today. Outside late Meredith Adisa Akinloe, who had grip of MPN then as chairman, that he could tell late Shehu Aliu Shagari as then president whatever he needed to do, how the party needed to move. Outside Meredith Adisa Akinloe, we got it wrong in the party administration.
Yeah, talking about absence of party leadership or party administration, several attempts were made, perhaps, to bring this two gentlemen together. I knew of, attempt by Kano elders at some point, even the National Assembly at some point intervened, but all of this was to no avail. It didn't work out until today. We'll talk about perhaps the reason why today we are having a different narrative. But why do you think this crisis lingered all this while?
It lingers, as he said, Saliu said, the roles of psychopons, mediocres, etc., etc. And these people inject danger will spinning in the process of politics because they create a serious gap in governance. And we really have to purify the process of democracy so that we can have elimination of some non-serious people, mediocres, etc. in between. Yes, it fails because political reconciliation comes naturally between individuals and with the promotions of like minds, not through the instrumentality of litigation or the supremacy of a political party. It can't work because people around them will certainly instigate and.
But we talk about the negative impact it is making, it is having on governance.
Yes.
The party and the party machinery at the national and the state level should be interested in mending the fence so that perhaps, because it is administration, if it fails, it is a party that fails. Shouldn't that be a reason why, even President Muhammadu Buhari, for instance, as the leader of the party, even though we have a supposed leader of the party, we haven't seen intervention in that respect.
Yes, is a lacuna in the provisions of the Constitution. Again, the inadherence to the provisions of the Constitution, lack of discipline, as well as not given the support as needed to make sure that the supremacy of the party exists. When you look at the structures of the parties, especially the two political parties, the ruling and the opposition, the main opposition, you will find there are some weaknesses in the structure. There are certain organs that are supposed to be enshrined and be functional, but they are lacking. Like the disciplinary committee, which is supposed to be there. Welfare committee, supposed to be there. Reconciliation and strategy, there becomes...
Should be a permanent feature in the political party.
Yes, should be in the standing committees. You know, there are ad hoc and standing committees. So it should be a standing committee and to be insinuated in the Constitution so that nobody will come and say he will going to operate outside the system and try to make sure that it works. When it works, if there are hearing officers that operate in negation with the provisions of the Constitution, will be submitted to such a committee to look at and investigate them. And then file reports against them and then take it to the National Working Committee. They will certainly make a recommendation to NEC, which is the peak body of the operation of the political party structure. And then it discipline them. Like this case, if such organs are in place and they are also in existence, they are functional, such things will never happen.
That's right.
Even though...
Okay, at least it wouldn't have, we will linger to this extent that we're talking about. In case you're just joining us, the program is Daily Politics and it's reaching you live from TrustTV here in Abuja. Today we're looking at, the possible reconciliation between a former governor of Kano State, Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, and the incumbent governor, Abdullahi Umar Ganduje. This duo were at loggerhead, before now, even though they are yet to come open and perhaps tell Nigerians that yes, we've reconciled and this is what we are up to. But the recent visit of the incumbent governor to his predecessor, to condole him after the loss of his younger brother, provided an opportunity for them to interface. We'll be looking at perhaps when we return, because there is also a positive side of this rift. I don't know if we'll look at that when we return. Stay with us.
The board and management of Media Trust Limited invites the general public to its annual Daily Trust Dialogue, themed 2023, The Politics, Economy and Insecurity. Date, 20th January 2022. Location, NAF Conference Center and Suites, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. prompt. Chairman of the occasion, former Head of State General Abdulsalami Abubakar, GCFR. Guest Speaker, Governor of Kaduna State Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. Guest Speaker, Governor of Ebonyi State Engineer David Umahi. Guest Speaker, former Chairman Federal Inland Revenue Service Mrs. Ifueko Omoigui Okauru. Moderator, Executive Director, Daria Media Nigeria Limited, Kadaria Ahmed. The event will be transmitted live on Trust TV, and all participants must observe COVID-19 protocols and wear their face masks.
Thank you very much for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics, reaching you live from Trust Television here in Abuja. And I've been interfacing with Madam Aminu Salihu Yakudima, a political affairs analyst, and Comrade Salihu Dentata Mahmood, a political commentator. Together we'll be looking at a reconciliatory move between former Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso and the incumbent governor of the state, Governor Abdullahi Ganduje. Before the break, I was actually saying that there's also perhaps a positive side of this development. You know, in most cases, if there is a rift like this, when you look at the positive and negative side, you should also look at the positive side. In the face of this, disagreement, rift, and all of that between these two gladiators, you could also see an attempt, by the incumbent governor to make a mark, for instance, or to do things that would outshine his predecessor in terms of projects. I know they have jointly, executed the projects, that today Kano people are proud of. But we've seen massive, unprecedented, perhaps, infrastructure in particular development in Kano State. Some will say, on a normal day, without this kind of rift, perhaps maybe we wouldn't have seen things like this. But each want to, create the impression that, yes, I've done better than my predecessor. How are you looking at this?
Well, if you look at sustainability of some of the infrastructural facelift by the ex-while governorship administration of Kwankwaso, you can see that some of the overhead bridge within Kano metropolis were even given more standard architectural engineering designing to stand the test of time than when Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso was there as governor, even though, as you rightly said, they jointly executed the programs. Then again, in the area of sponsorship of some of these students abroad to read professional courses relating to piloting and host of others, is still continued, even though some of the subjects and aids said at a minimized rate and host of others, which is to tell you that he also, in one way or the other, took some positive examples to do it in a more better way, which after his administration, I believe Kano people can what have you. Then also, if you look at demolitions of some of the ancient walls, we call Kofa in Hausa, where for the first time it hasn't been done, and I think some beautification of water, and also borrowing of the rights of Kano people, because I can remember,
even though some people have reservations on that. They felt these are cultural, these are heritage.
Even in Lagos it was done. If you go to areas like Isaleko, Tinumbu and other Agarawu and other areas, there were ancient edifices that were destroyed to give way for modern development, and years after they are appreciating the Tinubu administration. So in a way, even the rift between the Los Rios Boys Association of Nigeria, PAC, and Kano people, even though they had to go to court, but His Excellency Ganduje had to go by the interest of Kano people by moving them out of Naibawa to somewhere after, what is the name of Dakastale or what have you. So all these are developmental driven goals in the interest of the people. The only areas
could they have been triggered by this?
Yes, I believe so, because it's an example of indigenization, like taking it away from outsiders and making everything to be customized for the interest of Kano people. Because if you look at the Itato Naibawa garage of the Los Rios Park, they were constituted constituting nuisance, where even drugs like codeine and other things will be brought in luxurious buses unchecked until the NDLA, in conjunction with the Kano security, what have you. Then again, the only area where the governor did not meet up well was area of bringing Lagos style of taxation on maybe tricycles and also of other areas. So you can see there are areas where Kwankwaso got some percentage, where he also exceeded certain percentage.
So either way, it's a plus, the Kano people. Malam Aminu, you happen to be a Kano resident, and you've seen, Kano under these two gentlemen, under Kwankwaso and now under Ganduje. But looking at it from the political perspective, there has been, argument that which is a fact anyway, that since the assumption of Ganduje as governor, he has made efforts to dismantle, if you like, the political structure and the influence of the former governor, Ganduje. He made sure that he get rid of people who are his loyalists within the government cycle, and then that's what led to even the impeachment of the speaker, the former speaker of the State House of Assembly, and so on. And having done that, was not, he keep, ensuring that whatever he can do, to put him at bay or to keep him at bay, he has done that. At some point, it became even difficult for him to go to Kano because of the security situation and so on. How do you see, what impact do you think that has done, to the people of Kano, especially with regards to political development and governance?
Well, that could be judged as negative impact. Because when you have a structure and somebody is coming to dismantle, it's dragging the society back, dragging development back, separations, things that will come on board for facilitations of welfare of the citizenry. So that should be minus. The red cap revolution
again
of the Kwankwaso
has
taken up early enough. Therefore, whatever machinery will be put in place cannot certainly dismantle such a structure easily, because it has consolidated, deeply rooted and entrenched.
So the Ganduje experiment perhaps did not work out.
Couldn't work out. He succeeded, of course, of removing one or two people within the government structure. But if you are talking of the political structure, it's difficult for such an effort to dismantle what I have referred to, the red cap revolution, what they call the Kwankwaso Amana.
That's right.
It has been entrenched, and it becomes a doctrine.
Kano,
It becomes a doctrine and instilled into the minds of young men. Understand also that there are benefits from such a revolution. Why? Because there is this human development that we mentioned here.
Talking about the educational.
Yes, I came across a consultant who has nothing to do with politics. And he tells me that on government's peril, through the efforts of Kwankwaso, he has got masters and PhD. And this is something that he will never forget. And there's
Human
no way
capital
you separate.
development.
Yes, and he said there's no way you separate his loyalty to Kwankwaso. There are many of such people who were created by that policy. So whatever effort is making, I think certainly it has been done brutalistly without making a mark. And now it should also be time for regrets. Why? Because they are now one. They have reconciled. And they have to come together. And as you said, there are political reasons for such reconciliation also.
Yes, we'll explore that in a short while. Yes. Some will say the chicken has come home to roast somehow. I don't want to. But then looking at the U-turn, this is a governor who has consistently been making comments, some would say, some even unpalatable against his former boss, his predecessor, and so on and so forth. But suddenly, he found a way of coming back, staging a comeback to the enclave, and that same red carpet, movement. He used perhaps the condolence visit to initiate that. What do you think would have led, to this dramatic, change in political direction?
Don't forget the fact that court recently ruled in favor of the Shekarau faction, himself a former governor, who defeated His Excellency Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso in 2003, alongside Ganduje as the deputy governorship aspirant. And again, Ganduje, you know, is a retired civil servant. He was in FCT here in the then Ministry of Federal Capital Territory. And people normally dismiss his political knowledge. He learned politics from the grassroots, because under the Gadonasco administration as FCT minister, even though a military administration, there used to be caretaker committee chairman. Abdullahi Ganduje was caretaker committee chairman for ABUJA and later Gwagwalada. So this is how far he started politically. And it was from that time he started positioning himself in the political affairs of Kano State. The issues are, they are foresighted. And this is somebody that is having a kind of tripartite arrangement, both a retired civil servant and now a political beneficiary, in the sense that he rode through the Kwankwaso and others' political trend to get to where he is. Because even while they were defeated in 2003, they were together. So the issues are, don't forget the fact that he might have seen the handwriting on the wall. And these sad events of the death of the father of His Excellency Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, who is also Akimin Madobi, that is part of the Kano tradition and what have you, he banked on that opportunity. And this is what you call political foresightedness and correct calculation. So that is to say, his political camp knows what is right, when and how. So I think in that direction, I will give him to him that he has used his bureaucratic training in the civil service to add up to political generalissimo to become a combined service chief in the polity. No matter how it is, no matter what happened in 2019, I believe that singular sympathy and condolence visits has waved away more than 50% from followership of the Kwankwasia movement in Kano State.
Yeah, it seems so, Malam Aminu, when Kwankwaso himself did say that, you know, he welcomed perhaps and then appreciated him for coming to condole with him. And then he also did mention that, you know, it's a family issue, you know, it's a family affair, and it's something that they can reconcile without, you know, he also talked about the influence of the third parties, you know, those who have been cashing in, you know, for their own selfish interests and so on. But then looking at the configuration and the atmosphere in Kano, for instance, he talked about the emergence of, Shekarau, you know, the re-emergence of Shekarau now, taking the structure away from the governor, the incumbent governor. And the fact that, you know, Kwankwaso and Ganduje would always remember, just like he said, this same individual floored them, you know, in 2023, during 2023 elections. So they have a common, so to say, political, you know, albatross to face. Do you see them joining forces, and how would they do this? Because certainly one have to decamp to the camp of the other. We're talking about two political parties here. Kwankwaso is of the PDP and Ganduje is of the APC. Do you see one of them, you know, decamping because of this changing political atmosphere?
Yes, I have proposed that, and by the grace of God, one has to decamp so that they can join forces. The approach they made was a gentlemanly approach that deserved commendation on the side of both of them. There is maturity in the approach of His Excellency Ganduje to approach his friend, his mentor, and his boss. And for the boss not to waste time to embrace him and then put it behind and call it a family affair.
That's right.
That is maturity. And you should expect more things to happen. Certainly they will come together. Either Kwankwaso decamping or Ganduje decamping to join Kwankwaso. But I see more of Ganduje decamping to join Kwankwaso so that he can give you that decorum.
Okay, both of them are on the edge and they have found a common ground. Ahead of 2023 elections, they want to have the political bearing. For Ganduje, you know, he's not coming back. This is his second term and, you know, he's get done with the governorship of Kano, for instance. For Kwankwaso, he's eyeing the #1 seat consistently. And how do you see these permutations, working out?
Well, if Ganduje eventually leaves in 2023, he might romance his SY boss that they've now reconciled to get at least either senatorial or ministerial slot. Then for His Excellency,
that on the lesser ground now?
No. How many? There are many former governors. Okorocha, mind you, was a two-term governor. Abdullahi Adamu of Nasarawa State, Goje, Gombe, and host of others in the Senate. They were two-term governors. So Ganduje cannot prove to be more superior than this astute elder statesman. And for His Excellency Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, don't forget the botched governorship. What have you in 2019? He would like Abba Gida to clinch the governorship seat of Kano State, and at the federal, if at the end of the day the coast is not clear, at least he has something at home, because
so there could be some level of trade by barter, or something like give and take.
His Excellency Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, whom I got to know through my former boss, the late Second Republic Governor of Lagos State, Alhaji Latif Jakande, is a man who has principle, just like our elder statesman Aseria, and he also has what you call ideology. I think most of his ideology you can weigh it 50% with that of the late Mala Aminu Kano, because this is a man, once it comes to political ideology, he takes people first before
but where is the ideology? Some will say he's been jumping from one party to the other.
Well, don't forget, in a third world democratic experiment, you need to do that. This is a political system devoid of integrity, pedigree, and 100% followership. Today, your closest ally can defy you, can be in opposition to you once certain settlements bigger than yours comes. So in that case, you just have to go to any party that your interest can be protected. You can now see the transit from APC to PDP by Kwankwaso has gathered momentum. If not, Abba Gida wouldn't have been that popular in 2019 governorship election.
Okay, now looking at the current scenario, how would it look like for the APC, for instance? Because in the end, APC might be at the receiving end. If, for instance, Ganduje decides to decamp to join his boss in the PDP, and then looking at Kano, in terms of followership now, traditionally some would say it's an APC state, so to speak. Looking at the number in terms of supporters, and so what do you think? What impact would it make on the ruling party, the APC?
It will
very quickly.
Yes, it will make a very serious impact. Of course, if and only if Ganduje join Kwankwaso, certainly, Kano will fall under PDP. Even with Ganduje at the other side, it was top bottle, very top bottle for APC to be able to get a Kano. And now with the accelerations and some propaganda of Abba Gida and what they have put in terms of structure, I don't think they will have any permutation that will supersede that.
So in a way, it's a battle for APC now to retain its position 2023 in Kano.
Quite true.
Okay. True. Now let me get your last line, because we're rounding up. In all of this, where do you see the pendulum swinging? In the end, even though they didn't come out, to fully, announce the reconciliation and a direction. Where do you see the direction in the next couple of days?
Well, in the next couple of days, I foresee Itato hostile camps coming together to embrace peace. Don't forget the fact that the son to former head of state, late General Sani Abacha, is also warming up, and they have a lot of followership as well. So I think these reasons, especially as elder statesman said, the Ganduje camp and the Kwankwaso camp will form a common cause, whether with advantage to Ganduje or not. He would like to do that to avoid white paper that might come, even though we don't pray for it.
Well, that's a big one. Thank you very much, Comrade Salihu Dantata Mahmoud and Malam Aminu Salihu Yakodima, for talking to us on Daily Politics. Yes, so on their behalf and the technical crew, this is where we come to the end of Daily Politics today. But you can join us, across our social media platforms to catch up. That is, if you missed this discussion. On behalf of everyone, I'm Shafiu Suleiman, thanking you for staying with us.